I'm Rob Sarney, and you're listening to What the Heck Fintech, where you'll experience and learn that fintech is fin life. Let's get started. So welcome, everyone. We have a great guest for you today. And as we go through our stories, I mean, probably the last, I want to say couple of years, Gene and I have some shared stories we could probably give a little bit because we're collaborating a lot together. Now, Gene's the real deal. One time I sent him an email. Hey, can you do a little profile of yourself for some event we were doing? And he had so many degrees. I was like, he has more degrees than I have socks. It's like crazy. I'm like, where do you hear? The skills he has is unbelievable, everybody. And so Gene, he has an unbelievable, quant background. He's worked in investments. He's worked with small companies, big companies, and currently a professor of practice at WPI. And that's where some of our overlap goes. And he's heading up the FinTech Project Center and doing an awesome job. So Gene, I won't do it justice, and I know I'm going to learn a lot just by hearing your story. I explain to us, hey, even starting a little bit from the beginning, and then I'd love to hear your background and how you got into this fintech space.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks for having me, Rob. And it's a privilege to be on this podcast. And just to give you a little bit more. Well, a synopsis of my background. Yeah, I grew up in London and the UK, and that's where I received most of my formal education.
And your accent.
Yeah, okay. And I studied, during my undergrad days, I studied pure mathematics and theoretical physics. And I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life and career, and being an obedient son, my father suggested that I run a PhD program. In the UK, you can go straight from undergrad into a PhD program. So I followed that advice. Wow. However, I lasted 3 weeks because I just went in and realized that academic life, it just wasn't for me. So, and also actually I was being influenced by some of my former classmates that went into in finance in the city of London, and they were telling me about all the wonderful stuff that they are learning, even though their background wasn't so much in finance, but some were in statistics, some were in economics, some were in physics, and they were having fun, and they were getting paid a lot as well. So I was like, okay, maybe I was doing the wrong thing. So at that point, I decided to. I didn't even know what an MBA was or a business school, but it turned out if you really want to make a mark or have a good solid foundation to work in finance, you may need to understand business. So I thought, okay, So I registered at London Business School to read to do an MBA, and I actually learned a lot during my time there, because I went in there with the intention of learning finance. However, my professor actually said something profound, which really got me thinking. I said, look, don't focus on finance, right? Focus on business and see how business really works. Because if you understand that, then you understand the whole finance and investing. So that perspective really shaped my thinking. However, during my time at the business school, one of my professors was actually had a very strong quantitative background, and he was consulting with, at the time, probably the preeminent quantitative risk management portfolio construction firm called 𝗏𝗏, which was started by Bar Rosenberg in California. And so he got me an internship with them. And I after my internship, I just loved it there. So they actually gave me a full-time job. So that was my first job on Wall Street, right? City of London, it's the city. And while I was there for about maybe a couple of years. Then they sent me to work with the Paris office. So I went to Paris, worked with them for I think about six months. And they said, no, you need to stay a bit longer. The initial plan was 6 months, but you say you need to stay a bit longer. So what was 6 month an assignment tend to be a 2-year an assignment. And so after 2 years, they brought me to America, actually, to the headquarters in Berkeley, California. And very first time in America. And yeah, I had a fantastic time, just working with some of these brilliant minds, the likes of Stan Beckers and Richard Grenard, and a chap named Peter Muller, who is now the CEO of purpose-driven trading company, PDT, in New York. So it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. It was a mixture of people walking around with the persona of professors coupled with commercialization. So it was a brilliant environment, and I actually learned a lot when I was there. And they then opened an office in New York. So they basically asked me and another chap to start the New York office. So I ended up moving to New York, and for some reason, I just got intoxicated by Wall Street, and I was bombarded by all the things that were happening there. So somebody approached me at a conference to see if I wanted to join Citibank. And I was like, well, I knew Citibank as a big conglomerate bank. So I jumped the ship and worked with Citibank. And so I was with Citibank for about 3 years. And then I got recruited from Citibank to Union Bank of Switzerland, UBS, with the intention of working in Stamford, Connecticut. So all the time I was thinking of working from New York, Manhattan, and I was going to commute to Stamford. Then a week before I started, I said, "Oh, by the way, you're not going to start here in Stamford. You're going to Tokyo." I was like, "Okay." I had a very preconceived ideas about the Japanese in terms of being regimental. So I was like, I'm not sure if that's for me, right? But the adventurous side of me thought, okay, why not? So I took the plunge and went to Japan. That was the best experience I've ever had, professionally and career-wise. And I just loved it. I just loved Tokyo. In fact, if I had a chance to go back, I'd definitely go back. The best experience ever. So that was my a journey of the journey of my professional career. And then while I was in Tokyo, working with Union Bank of Switzerland, UBS actually merged with Swiss Bank Corporation. So the Swiss Bank Corporation, SBC, they actually took over the Asian operation. So to cut a long story short, my team was made redundant. So we had to come back to the US. So I came back to the US. And at that time, I said to myself, okay, I wanted to learn more about the derivatives, mathematical finance, and so forth. So I had a year to do something else. So I said, well, rather than just bumming around, I enrolled with Carnegie Mellon, which then had a program called Computational Finance program. So I enrolled with Carnegie Mellon and completed that program with them. And then my thesis got picked up by a hedge fund. called Triton Partners. And they were at the nascent stage of developing a platform to structure CDOs. So my thesis that I did had to do with time-based covariance matrix, correlation matrix. So they thought that it would be germane and apropos for to construct a portfolio of credit instruments, and then when you structured it out, you incorporate the correlation aspect of it. And that was a very novel approach at the time. And I was excited about it, so I joined them. And one of our clients, when I was at Triton Partners, was Barclays Capital, then investment arm of Barclays Bank. And they wanted to start a CDO, credit derivative trading platform, or desk. So the head of the desk, who then came to visit us at Triton, saw what I was doing, and he took me for lunch and basically convinced me to jump ship and join him. So I joined him and went to Barclays, and we were essentially the first group on Wall Street to structure credit derivatives-driven synthetics CDOs. And we were so successful that a number of the Wall Street banks started copying our methodology. And one of them was actually Bear Stearns. And Bear Stearns thought, okay, these guys are making so much money, and we could do the same thing within our bank, but a little bit of variation. Instead of constructing synthetic CDOs referencing corporate debt, they thought they could apply the same thing to mortgages. So Bear Stearns basically took the exact modus operandi and the model that we were using, replicated it for consumer debt like mortgages. But the underlying risk profile is completely different. Corporate debt is entirely different from consumer debt, mortgage debt, in terms of probability of defaults and so forth. They started doing it, and that was the beginning of the financial crisis. Because they were making so much money, they couldn't get enough mortgages initiated. And investors couldn't get enough of it. So they were like, Bear Stearns approached all these mortgage brokers and said, look, you got to issue more mortgages so that we can actually buy it from you. So that was so at a point whereby if you can breathe, you get a mortgage. And don't worry about it if you can't pay it, because at the end of the day, house prices are going up, so we can sell it and get our money back. So that to me, I think it was the genesis of the financial crisis. Anyway,
and you were right in the middle of all that.
Right in the middle of all
that. I mean, at Bear Stearns, because they're a big player in that whole thing that unraveled.
Exactly, and so after being with Barclays for a while, I decided to make a transition to the buy side. So I joined a company called Babson Capital, which was then the investment arm of MassMutual. So I joined them, got married, moved to Connecticut. So I was commuting to Springfield, Connecticut, Springfield, Massachusetts. And there I was head of the quantitative investment strategies, basically analyzing all the debt instruments from single corporate debt to structured credit to private specialty finance, that sort of stuff. And so I stayed with them for many years, and then my wife and I decided to. My wife is also from the UK. Also decided to move back to the UK. So I joined Schroders Investment Management in London, And when I joined them, we were actually at the peak of the global financial crisis. So I approached them with the strategy of trying to take advantage of the market, in the sense that the asset prices were so cheap. So we thought we could create a long short strategy. Because at that time, any instrument, any structured instrument that begins with the word collateral, basically was incredibly cheap. People just didn't want it. It was toxic. But not all collateralized debt were created equal. Because at the end of the day, I had this philosophy that no matter how complicated the structure is, everything boils down to the cash flow that is driving the thing. So if you can understand the cash flow, and the cash flow makes sense, and the fundamentals were good, at the end of the day, the market will bounce back. Yeah. So they gave me the mandate to work with other credit professionals at Schroders for us to start this fund, a long short fund. But it was very difficult for us to scale it up, because globally, nobody wanted to touch anything that begins with collateralized anything. So it didn't work out, and we couldn't raise enough money for it. So I came back to the US. Yeah. So coming back to the US, I started working with as a consultant, working with a consultancy platform, working with various pension funds, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds, to help them to try and understand the risk embedded in their portfolios, without going beyond the standard models, but really trying to understand what is driving what are the factors that was driving their portfolio. So we moved beyond the standard Markowitz portfolio construction framework, but try to understand what were the driving risk factors, and try to understand those and how they interacted with each other. So we approached a very, very novel idea. This is way before AI and the dynamic relationship that existed between risk factors. And so I did that. At the same time, I started working with academia. So I was working as a consultant, and then with one foot in academia as an adjunct professor. So I did that for many years, and then WPI position came along. So I jumped ship to WPI. Why did I jump ship? Because the whole idea of fintech was just incredibly fascinating to me. I first learned about fintech through a payment system that was developed by a firm based in Kenya, of all places. They had a digital currency where they can you can transact by using your phone. So I'm like, wow, this is potentially a game changer for the world. So that's when I became so fascinated with the whole fintech space. And I thought the best place to learn it was no other place than WPI.
And 𝗏𝗵 dropped a call to you, and
that's right.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
Excuse me, Dean 𝗏𝗵.
Dean Dunbar, yes.
Yeah, Dean Dunbar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So
that was the short version of my journey.
Yeah, what a journey. Wow, I'm like, wow. I gotta take a nap now. And so that was like wow, you've done so much. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so there's different pieces that really intrigued me during that whole story. I mean, I know you did risk management, obviously, and quant and everything. Which area? I mean, it all kind of overlaps a lot too, right? Because it's all about the data and figuring it out, and it all relates to fintech too. What area? The risk management side, or the quant side, or when you blend them both together, when you have a role that does actual both, to kind of, because risk versus reward is in every single finance decision, as you know better than anybody.
Which is amazing. That's a very interesting question, because based on the consultancy work that I was doing with all the sovereign wealth funds and pension funds and the insurance company, we then came to the realization that at the end of the day, portfolio management, or perhaps even investing for that matter, it's all about buying and selling risk. So, another entity assume the risk and get compensated for it, right? So portfolio management, in a sense, was the same as risk management. Trying to optimize the return that you're going to get for giving exposure to risk. So my training in quant became very, very an integral part of analyzing risk, not from operational perspective, but more like investing perspective, to the point whereby we were no longer doing risk, asset allocation anymore, but rather we're doing a risk allocation. So that whole space became incredibly interesting to me, of how I view the investment and investment management arena in general.
And I mean, all that type of management and thinking that through, it all comes down to that risk versus reward, everything. Please come back to hear part 2 with Dr. Gene Yeboah as he uses his unbelievable experiences and learnings in his life and brings that to WPI to make the best learning experience for his WPI fintech students. Thank you for listening to What the Heck Fintech. Make sure you tune into our next episode as we continue to interview fintech leaders and share real-world stories from across the fintech ecosystem, so you can fully understand that fintech is fin life.